In the desert outskirts of Las Vegas, where the shimmer of neon lights gives way to the rust-red silence of sand and scrub, a young man with a dream made his final performance. Eric Bloom was just 25 years old when a Bengal tiger ended his life in a training session gone tragically wrong. It didn't happen during a show or in front of flashing cameras. It happened in the quiet in-between, the space where routines become rituals and wildness is always waiting. Eric's death was not the first of its kind, and sadly it would not be the last. But the story of how it unfolded and what followed continues to echo in a world that still struggles with the fine line between command and instinct, between control and chaos. Eric wasn't born into the circus or raised in an animal park. He grew up in the suburbs of Arizona, far from tiger enclosures or training arenas. But even as a child, he was drawn to wild animals, not from a place of dominance, but fascination. He watched every documentary he could find, read field guides like they were adventure novels, and built makeshift habitats for lizards and insects in the backyard. By high school, he was volunteering at a wildlife sanctuary. By college, he was studying zoology with a focus on behavior and enrichment. But Eric wasn't content with academic knowledge. He wanted closeness, he wanted presence, and most of all, he wanted understanding. After graduation, he moved to Nevada and joined the team at Prince Ranch, an exotic animal facility known for training big cats for film, photography, and exhibition. It was there that Eric found what felt like his calling. Working with tigers is not performance, it is structure, repetition, timing. Trainers often describe it as a dance, one that never forgets the stakes. At Prince Ranch, Eric became known for his discipline and quiet confidence. He worked long hours helping with feeding, cleaning, medical observations, and eventually training sessions. His methods were patient. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. He believed that routine built trust, but he never mistook trust for safety. But he was meticulous, one coworker recalled. He had a journal he kept on every animal, notes on behavior, mood, changes. He studied them like you'd study people you care about. Among those animals was a 5-year-old male Bengal tiger named Jagger. Powerful, intelligent, and moody, Jagger had been raised in captivity and trained for commercial work. Eric had worked with him many times before. There had never been an incident, not a single sign, until there was. March 25, 2001. The day began like any other. Eric arrived early, reviewed the day's plans, and prepped for a session with Jagger. A photo shoot had been scheduled for promotional materials. The task was simple: move Jagger into position, cue a few poses, return him to hold it. Eric entered the cage with Joshua Weinstein, the tiger's owner and a seasoned handler. They had done it before. They followed the routine. Then, without warning, Jagger turned. In one sudden movement, the 400-pound cat lunged, jaws clamping around Eric's neck. It happened in seconds. Weinstein rushed to intervene, sustaining injuries of his own in the process, but the damage was done. When emergency services arrived, Eric had already succumbed to his injuries. He was pronounced dead on the scene. The attack sent ripples far beyond Las Vegas. Within hours, local news stations had picked up the story. Within days, national headlines followed. Tiger kills young trainer in Las Vegas. But in the animal care world, the questions weren't about headlines. They were about prevention. How could this happen? There were no broken latches, no missing barriers. Eric had followed the rules. He had done what he'd been trained to do. But that was the problem, because the rules, it turned out, weren't enough. Jagger was not euthanized. Authorities ruled that the tiger had acted on instinct, not aggression, and yet the attack was fatal just the same. Animal welfare groups immediately responded, calling for tighter regulations, clearer boundaries, and an end to free cat tech training with big cats. Protected contact, where trainers never enter an enclosure without a secure barrier, was already standard in some facilities. But it wasn't everywhere. Eric's death became a case study in why it should be. The tragedy fueled a broader ethical debate. Should wild animals be trained at all? Should they perform? What's the moral cost of turning apex predators into entertainers? Some argued that with better training and oversight, these kinds of tragedies could be minimized. Others said that minimized wasn't good enough, that when the risk is death, unlikely still isn't acceptable. In response, several states revisited their regulations. Insurance carriers for animal-based shows began tightening their coverage rules. Training facilities reevaluated their practices. Some retired their cats, others restructured their programs entirely. The industry was changing, but the cost of that change had already been paid. Eric's funeral was small but deeply felt. Family, friends, and fellow trainers gathered in a quiet chapel outside Phoenix. They spoke of his kindness, his focus, his unwavering belief in the animals he worked with. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't inexperienced, he was doing what he loved, and he was doing it well. His parents later released a statement that read, in part, "Eric knew the risks of his work. He accepted them, but we believe more could have been done to protect him. We hope his story helps others avoid the same fate." A small plaque was later installed at Prince Ranch, not near the cages, but in a shaded grove just beyond the training area. It reads, "In memory of Eric Bloom, who walked beside the wild and paid the price for wonder." In the years since, trainers have cited Eric's story in seminars, legislation, and policy debates. His name appears in discussions about free contact, licensing, and trainer safety. His death is part of the cautionary literature now taught in certification courses. But for those who knew him, he's remembered differently. He's remembered in the quiet moments, early mornings at the ranch, hand-feeding a tiger cub, laughing about a muddy paw print on his shirt. He's remembered as someone who believed that wildness could be respected, not feared, and who in trying to prove that, gave more than anyone ever should. Eric Bloom's death was not spectacle, it was sacrifice. A moment that exposed the cracks in a system and asked us to reckon with them. His story is a reminder that when we ask people to stand before lions, tigers, and bears for our awe, for our advertising, or for our applause, we owe them more than a paycheck. We owe them protection. We owe them standards. We owe them change. Because behind every roar is a risk, and behind every trainer is a human life, one that should never be forgotten.